All righty, it's jacked up August 20th, 2024. I have a suit on today because we had to get official for the News9 evening anchor. You watch him at 5, 6, 10, and 11 on WTOV 9. Good friend Dylan Cleland joining the program tonight. We're going to talk about a little bit of a couple of topics as it pertains to high school football. It's week one already. The Buckeye State, Dylan, getting ready to start this week. It's crazy that it's already here, but we're very excited about it. A lot of new projects here, especially in this room in the Digital Content Center, but nonetheless, high school football, it's back.
It's back, and we have new projects. We have ones from years prior that are returning that we'll get into. And we have a decent slate of games, obviously, just Ohio week one starting. But, I mean, the one that pops off the page has to be our game on Friday night that we'll have, Borders and Borders Friday Night Rivals, Buckeye Local Bel Air.
Yep.
First night game in Nelson Field history. Such a cool thing if you're a student athlete or a student at that school to have the opportunity to be a part of, and we're going to have a broadcast of it. So if you're out at another game, you can pull it up and watch it on your phone, or if you're at home, obviously want to check that out. But such a neat thing to have. Obviously, there's the tradition that Bel Air has of playing Saturdays without the lights, and they're going to continue that tradition with a handful of afternoon games. But this was one that we couldn't pass up.
No, it was not. And when we knew that this game was going to be taking place, it was one that we all kind of said, game one. Like we want obviously to be a part of that. Bel Air not only has a rich football tradition, but is one of the oldest programs in the Ohio Valley. I was just tagged in something on Twitter the other day. Somebody did the research for the oldest rivalries in Ohio, and Bel Air Martins Ferry is like 6th on the list. So Bel Air's been around a real long time.
Right.
Doing my research for the game, I'll be on play-by-play this Friday for the game with Tony Filberto. Rob Metzger's doing Martins Ferry and Shadyside on Thursday. 1937 was when Bel Air started playing games at Nelson Field. Right. Obviously, lights in stadiums didn't become a thing until like the 60s and the 70s, but 1937 was the first year Nelson Field was in operation for Bel Air high school football under the lights. And you'll be a part of it as well. The Wendy's halftime show, back hosting it for another year. Tell us a little bit about that and, what fans can expect if they're at home watching the broadcasts.
Yeah, so the broadcast at the half, we'll send it back here to the WTOV 9 studios, and we'll have the Wendy's halftime report for you. Usually the first part of the show looks at some highlights just in from around the Ohio Valley. We try to get out to, we're out to about a dozen games every Friday, obviously, for Sports Friday, but we're able to get highlights back from about 4 or 5 of those games. They're sent back here. We cut them in-house, and we'll put together some information for those, and I'll bring those to you along with the score update. So we're looking at usually 4 or 5, depending on the week and then the situation. Obviously, Steubenville Big Red, we typically have those highlights. They're going to open up against Cincinnati McNicholas this week at home at Harding Stadium. So we'll have those highlights. And really, it's just an opportunity for you to take a peek at what's going on around the Valley. Especially when we get into things and both states are playing, there's an interest. There's an interest there in within the county and county to county rivals and different things like that. So you can not only see what your team is doing. If we don't have highlights of it, we'll likely have a score of it to at least give you an update as to what we'll have. And that also can get us, allow us to set you up too for Sports Friday, where we typically do have the highlights, full highlights of all the games. So highlights in the first half. We'll take a look at the Scholar Athlete as well. We have a couple other things in the works this year for the halftime show as well that we bring you. So we're excited. I'm excited to have the opportunity to host it again and be a part of not only the sports department and what you guys do, but obviously the broadcasts on Thursday and Friday night. And as Jack mentioned, we start on Thursday with Shadyside Martins Ferry, talk about rivals and history.
Yeah.
These two teams go back a long time, Jack.
They do, Belmont County rivals, and you talk about that game with Big Red and McNicholas. You think, oh, it's a Cincinnati team coming in from out of town, whatever, maybe. But Cincinnati McNicholas's head coach, Mike Orlando, Steubenville Catholic Central head coach, or Steubenville Catholic Central quarterback, I should say.
Yep.
Quarterback on the state championship team for Steubenville Central back in, I believe it was 1993.
Yeah.
So that it's another cool local connection.
Yeah, and he gets to come home and play Big Red as a coach now. And so that has to be a neat thing to be able to do, having been, from the area and going to Steubenville Catholic. Cambridge and Indian Creek, week 1, 2. We have that on, we'll have highlights of that on Sports Friday.
Yeah.
But that's another big one, week 1.
Yeah, Buckeye 8 matchup was a game that Indian Creek won on the road last year. It was a game that kicked off our live broadcast schedule presented by Bordas and Bordas as well on a Thursday night in Guernsey County. So that came back on the schedule as well. And one of the big things too, and now even though we aren't directly involved with it going on, happening in this content center on Friday nights this fall is Sports Friday on the Go, which I know Bill Phillips and Don Sloan, they're hosting it. Bill Phillips talked about it on the 9-minute fill-up later last week after it was launched. It's a cool concept, and I cannot
really
wait
neat
until it starts to get off the ground and we really get into a swing of things with it.
It's really neat. If you're an NFL fan, there is a show out there. I don't know if we could say it or not technically, but you've probably seen it on Sundays. It's going to cut to the scoring plays, the interceptions, the fumbles.
Without giving it away, it's 7 hours of commercial-free football for the professionals. You're going to get about 2 to 2.5 hours of commercial-free Ohio Valley High School football with Bill and Dawn.
Yeah, and it's neat. It's a neat, like I said, neat concept. Though we'll also try to get some full highlights maybe to as the night goes on that they can pull and say, hey, let's catch you up on the action. That's in the works too. And then of course scores. I mean, you might be wondering, hey, what's this school doing? What's that school doing? And that's going to come around.
Yeah, that
as well.
ticker you see at the bottom of your screen right now will be filled with, and you only get, let me see here in real time, it is 1,000 characters. So we'll do our best to abbreviate and we'll do our best to update you, but we're going to fit as many games onto that ticker on your screen as possible. Maybe not, that we'll be able to show you live highlights of, but if you need to know a score across the Ohio Valley, I can't tell you how many times I've been out at a game and a fan has stopped me and said, hey, do you know the score of this game? And it has nothing to do with the two teams that I'm there covering or he's there watching. You'll be able to find them right here in pretty much a matter of how quickly you see the words scrolling across the bottom of your screen. Another thing that I'm really excited about too is with the software that we use, you've used it, I've used it. The way that we bring guests on for interviews is very easy, something that we can do on our phones. If I'm out covering a game and I have a free couple of minutes and I tell, Bill and Dawn, hey, I have a couple of minutes if you want me to hop on and we can talk about some things, we can do that too. And you get boots on the ground and hear voices from those games as well, which is really darn cool. I just can't believe high school football is back already.
I can't believe it's back. And just looking at this week 1 schedule, I mean, you see some teams obviously that pop off that had big years last year. Barnesville had
another big one. Yep,
had a big year. They're going to open up at Fort Fry on Friday night. St. Clairsville, always a team that's in the mix.
St. C's poised for a big year this year, and Fort Fry, they I call them Ohio Valley adjacent. We, could sometimes claim them because they're an OVAC opponent, but they're technically not in the viewing area. They're not too kind to when it comes to playing OVAC opponents at home. Their record against Ohio Valley Athletic Conference teams at home over the last 10 plus years is really pretty darn good. Lindsley, a couple of years ago, when they beat them on the road, it was the first loss to an OVAC opponent that Fort Fry had at home since like 2014. So that's a tough game for that's a tough game for Barnesville week 1. Blake Allen's had that program rolling the last couple of years, and they're kind of getting to the point where you see very successful high school football programs, and the old cliche is, we don't rebuild, we reload. Barnesville's into that point as well. And so is St. Clairsville. You brought them up. I mean, they bring back a ton. Big 22 Player of the Year finalist Dino Burke, who had video game-like stats last year, is back for his senior year. He's poised for as good or maybe even a better year on the ground. Brady Schaefer, senior quarterback. They have a ton of senior receivers. Engage Wolf, Tyson Pastor. I'm going to forget some guys. They've got a lot of weapons, but St. Clairsville's poised for a big year this year as well.
Yeah, and they have a lot of guys that might be electric play worthy, as do many teams. That returns this year, of course.
You can vote on that on the website.
Vote online. Yep. We'll have the 3 nominees we'll show during Sports Friday on News 9 at 10 on Fox, or on Fox 9. Following the half-hour News 9 at 10 on Fox 9.
Yeah, and one of the things, and I mentioned this, if you tune into the live Bordas and Bordas high school broadcast schedule reveal, one of the things that you'll have to keep an eye out for is our Fox show at 10:30. The first couple of weeks, it'll be status quo, what you've been used to as normal, but with the ever-changing landscape in Division I college football, TV deals change. Fox is adding a Big Ten Friday night game. I believe the first week for that is September 13th. Don't quote me on it. I don't have it in front of me. But at some point, Fox is going to have a Friday night game that will overtake our airwaves on Fox. So the plan is for the 10:30 show to be as you're watching it right now on our digital platforms. And then the NBC version of Sports Friday will be as normal. But yeah, it's just we're adapting with the times a little bit. We're changing things up, but Sports Friday on the go, I'm really, really excited about. Our game of the week schedule, I'm very excited about. And
Wendy's halftime show.
Wendy's halftime show. You're really excited. He hosts it. So please join Dylan for the Wendy's halftime show week in and week out on our broadcasts. Martins Ferry and Shadyside first up. Bel Air and Buckeye Local, another one that's on the schedule as well for the first Friday night game. Another one that I'm excited about too, heading up to Stambaugh Stadium in Youngstown for Cardinal Mooney and Steubenville Big Red. That's a series that saw, I believe, the first 9 games of it were playoff games. And then I think, Carl Pelini, longtime AD football coach there, and obviously Reno Suckoch has been at it, since my dad was in high school. They said, you know what, this has been a good game. Let's get it on the regular season schedule. And it has, and it's been really, really good the last couple of years. 14th all-time meeting. Mooney leads the series 7-6, but the reason why I'm excited about
that's as tight as you can get.
Yes. The reason why I'm excited about it is, when you watch a high school football game on our airwaves, you can always still get to it because most of them are local.
Right.
This one, there might be less people that make the trip an hour plus north out of the market to Youngstown.
Right.
More eyes on it. And as a viewer, might incline me to, sit on my couch at home and eat some chips and have a pop or two and
maybe
buffalo chicken dip.
Buffalo chicken dip.
Yep.
That's what I was going to go with that too.
I know you're a big buffalo chicken
maybe
dip
some
fan.
queso.
Yes. Queso Blanco though.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Not to switch gears, but I mean, I'm pumped up for high school football. Don't get me wrong, but this is like just going to whet the appetite. And then we got college football coming back next weekend. And boy, is it a slate to open up. Penn State and West Virginia on Fox 9, big noon kickoff.
Yeah.
That's a big one.
We'll have the showdown in Morgantown in a couple of weeks, previewing the matchup. Myself, Addison Albert, hosting, Jared Parker from our sister station in Johnstown, contributing some content for that on the Penn State side of things. And we'll get you set ready for that matchup on Fox on the 31st. We haven't officially ironed it out yet. I'm about 90% sure I'll be down there covering the game as well.
WVU is intriguing this year after everything that happened, and then obviously Neil Brown able to stick around, and I really think they could have a solid year. WVU.
Yeah, I mean, if you know me, well, actually, both of us.
Yeah, I'm a Pitt. I'll come out and say it. I'm a Pitt fan.
Yeah, I
know Jack.
I had no choice. My grandfather's been the voice of the team since like 1966, so I've had no choice. I think Pitt loses that game. I've told you that time and time
September
again.
14th, backyard brawl.
Yeah, Garrett Green is a stud. He is poised for a very big year. Could take home some accolades as far as the Big 12 goes. And you look at this 12-team landscape in the playoffs, West Virginia has a good year. They win 9-10 games. If you're a 9-10 win team in a Power 5 conference now, that might get you in.
Yeah, you're on the bubble, probably.
That's something that we're going to have to get used to, what really is the bubble, what the committee kind of looks for in a 12-team landscape. But I think 9-10
wins. I think that's kind of where you're sitting.
Yeah, I think Ohio State's going to contend to win the whole dang thing, too.
Oh, yeah. I think so too. I would agree.
Yeah. Will Howard was just recently named the Ohio State starting quarterback. They bring in Quinshon Judkins, who is one of my favorite college football players, period. Running back at Ole Miss now with the Buckeyes. Caleb Downs.
They lose Marvin Harrison Jr. though.
They do.
Big weapon.
I think Jeremiah Smith is going to be better.
Oh,
I mean, he just from what I've read and what I've seen from people covering the team a little bit more in depth, or that are the Columbus outlets that are there more often. I mean, the guy's as advertised one of the best wide receiver prospects ever. Like if you look at the recruiting numbers, Emeka Ibuka's still back. They've got weapons out the wazoo, and I think Will Howard. I felt myself being a little bit more of a Kyle McCord defender. I love the way that they went down the field last year and beat Notre Dame and how he led that drive. I felt like he kind of got the short end of the stick at the end of things. I think the loss to Michigan.
Yeah.
Like if they beat Michigan, Kyle McCord's still the quarterback at Ohio State this year. That's probably the truth of it. I think Will Howard's going to be better though. I really do. And I think Ohio State, I'm going to pick them right now on this show as you're watching it to win the whole dang thing.
Wow.
I am.
That's bold. That's bold. I mean, I could see it, but it's bold, especially with the 12-team playoff. You get a couple extra different teams in there.
Yeah,
you don't know who could mix it up.
Georgia brings back a quarterback and a really good team, and Kirby Smart's been there, done that. Alabama's got some questions. No Nick Saban. Kalen DeBoer comes down from Washington.
That'll be very intriguing to watch that unfold, I think.
I think Kalen DeBoer's a good coach, but being a good coach,
big shoes to fill.
Yeah, they are. And that's got to add a lot of pressure.
Yep.
And sometimes you could be a really good coach, but being a really good coach at one program versus a program like Alabama are two different things.
Yeah.
The NFL's right around the corner too.
It is. It is. We didn't talk about the Panthers though. What's the prediction?
I said 6-6 to you tonight.
Yeah. I said I agreed with that. I also said I could see 5-7. I hope I would hope that it would be no lower than 5-7. I think that would be a very bad year for them if that was the case.
Well,
but I mean, they're coming off a 3-9, so that is also fair. I don't know. It's intriguing. They opened with Kent State. They got a couple of Ohio teams on the schedule this year. They're playing Kent State week one.
And from an Ohio Valley
State
standpoint, Wheeling Park grad Andrew Glass comes to Acrisure Stadium. He's the Golden Flash's kicker.
Yep.
And then several guys from the Ohio Valley are on Youngstown State.
Yeah.
I'd have to look at the full list. There's like 5 or 6 of them. I know Colt Seacrest from Bel Air is a tight end on that squad. Mason Ludwig started his career at Toledo, transferred to Youngstown State, East Liverpool grad. And then there's a ton of other guys too. So that's pretty cool as well.
Yeah. September 21st for that one at Acrisure Stadium, 3:30 kickoff.
You only knew that off the top of your head because I know you were dealing with your season tickets today.
I was looking at them. Yes. Yeah. I was trying to figure out how to get them into my Apple Wallet.
I was always
a sidebar here.
No, you're fine.
Always a printed ticket guy. I like getting the printed ticket because you could keep it and you have that keepsake of, I was at the game.
My girlfriend and I went to a Wild Things game over the weekend, and they're still on the print ticket. And it was just, you walk up to we sound like a couple old guys, but
but it's true.
You walk up to the window, you get your tickets, and you let the guy scan them, and boom, you're in.
And then you have it. You know when you went.
And you were on the phone with your mother for how long today trying to deal
20 minutes trying to download it.
It's confusing.
It's a lot.
The NFL right around the corner as well.
Ooh, you said you're not too concerned yet with the Steelers, but after that preseason game on Saturday, I don't know. I was expecting more, but also
one area really concerns me.
Okay,
the offensive line.
Well, and that's what I was going to say. Part of I think the part of the issue on Saturday, I think, was a result of the offensive line. I don't think it was completely on Russell Wilson. I don't think it was completely on Justin Fields. I think that's the case, but I'm also kind of intrigued by Justin Fields after a couple of games.
You can't not be.
Well, you can't not be. He's young. You got to remember he's young. He's mobile. I think there's a lot to be excited about with him. It's just a matter of, do they have to go straight to him, or does Russell Wilson get he's probably going to get the nod week one, obviously. I mean, that's what Coach
for
Tomlin
all you
has
people
said,
out there that think like these national media heads that it should be Justin Fields week one, I'm sorry, you're wrong. Russell Wilson was not brought to the Steelers as a 13-year NFL veteran and a former Super Bowl champion quarterback to be a backup quarterback. Russell Wilson, mind you, was brought to the Steelers while Kenny Pickett was still on the roster. So Russell Wilson was not brought to the team to be Kenny Pickett's backup. And then obviously Kenny Pickett wants to get out of Pittsburgh. They trade him, and then they bring in Justin Fields. Just because they were able to bring in Justin Fields, it didn't change their plans for Russell Wilson.
Right.
Like Russell Wilson told us when I covered that press conference off the jump, Minka, Cam Hayward, TJ Watt, all of these guys were recruiting and reaching out to Russell, like, come here.
Yeah.
You think they're doing that for him to be the freaking backup quarterback?
No, and unfortunately for Kenny, things weren't much better in Philadelphia.
He might be the third string quarterback. Tanner McKee is outplaying him right now.
Yeah, it's a lot of interesting storylines.
Yeah, a lot of interesting storylines. Broderick Jones worries me a little bit at tackle. Not so much because of his own doing, but, well, I mean, it is his play, but the way that he's just been heave-hoed from left side to right side. I mean, Omar Khan told us at the beginning of training camp, we drafted him to play left tackle. He is going to be a left tackle. And I said this on my radio show in Pittsburgh on Sunday morning. Like, Andy Weidel was brought in as the Steelers assistant GM to handle NFL draft and all that prep because he's really good at it in Philadelphia. But he's also an offensive line savant, former offensive lineman. That is his MO. Arthur Smith, new offensive coordinator, also a former offensive lineman. You draft Broderick Jones. You trade up to draft Broderick Jones in the first round.
Right.
Draft another offensive tackle this year in the first round. 3 of your 4 first picks in the draft were offensive linemen. That all spells
this better pan out.
Let's build up our offensive line. Let's really prioritize the offensive line. If Broderick Jones not playing left tackle, right now is solely because Dan Moore, has been there for the last couple of years and can't play right tackle. If you were really, really, 100% full speed in retooling this offensive line, do what you did with Kendrick Green and James Dotson, Kevin Dotson. I almost said James on the radio on Sunday, and I corrected myself. Trade those guys. Trade Dan Moore and bring in a third tackle that plays right tackle so you can move the guy you traded up to play left tackle to play left tackle. That's my biggest thing.
Yeah.
And the other thing too, it's like if this offensive line is really struggling, like I think falls directly on the offensive line coach and Pat Meyer. Like,
Right.
what are we doing?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Then you have Warren maybe not going to be available. He gets a hamstring injury.
Yeah, Nate Herbig will probably miss a good chunk, if not all.
Probably going to open that opens the door for Zach Frazier, the Mountaineer, to probably get the nod.
And I think things were leaning that way.
You had said up at camp in Latrobe that he was getting a decent amount of looks.
Yeah, and then they started to increase.
Yeah.
And then I think the first preseason game against the Texans with the center quarterback exchange between Fields and Herbig not going well.
Twice.
Frazier played really well in that first game. I think it was trending towards Zach Frazier to begin with, whether or not of Nate Herbig's injury status. But unfortunately, with Herbig going down, might have to, bring another guy in to play the interior offensive line.
Right.
So the Browns lose 27-12 to Minnesota over the weekend in the preseason. Vikings with JJ McCarthy. Doesn't that suck?
That does. That's brutal. And he was, I think, you and I talked about this the other day. I think out of all the quarterbacks, he was probably one of the ones that he seemed like he was on the right path. I mean, the rookies, you only get a quick look at them,
and not necessarily because of like his abilities. I think he's was a very good college quarterback, but you couldn't have asked for a better situation to be a rookie quarterback in than a really good offensive-minded head coach in Kevin O'Connell.
One of the best wide receivers in the league.
The best wide receiver in the league. A really good offensive line and a top 5 tight end in TJ Hawkinson, who's probably going to miss the first couple weeks of the season, but regardless, he's still there.
Right.
Sam Darnold show now for them in Minnesota.
That's tough. It'd be tough to be a Vikings fan.
Yeah. You could also look at it through the lens that it might be tough to be a Browns fan. I mean, Deshaun Watson.
Right. I made all that money, and now
there's a very serious debate, regardless of who the Steelers starting quarterback would be week 1, between Russell Wilson or Justin Fields. Either of those two guys might be better than Deshaun Watson. Like, the Browns might have the worst quarterback situation in the division right now.
Yeah. I think it's. Yeah, I think you could make the argument of that.
Yeah, you absolutely could.
I think you really could.
Now they traded for Jerry Jeudy, so you pair him with Amari Cooper.
Right.
David Njoku he was always a really good tight end. Last year, he kind of came onto the scene as another top 5 tight end in the league. We had our fantasy draft with our college buddies, and David Njoku was, I think, the 2nd or 3rd highest tight end on the draft board.
He was.
So he's poised for a big year. The Browns' offensive line always is very good, and then you've got Myles Garrett on the opposite side. So they'll be in most of their games.
Absolutely.
I just think I could see the Browns going 7-10 or 10-7, and it all falls on the quarterback. Because look at what they did last year. Joe Flacco found the fountain of youth.
He did.
And they won 11 games.
Yep. Got to the playoffs, and then not good after that. But
one of the things that will change in the AFC North is Cincinnati. Not just Joe Burrow's hair color and style, but like he'll assumably be there for most of the season.
Yeah, barring another catastrophic injury. But I mean, I think he'll be a staple, and I think they have a good surrounding cast. I think they're going to be solid. I think the Bengals will be a team to watch for.
All right, before I let you go, 1 through 4 AFC North, rank them. Actually, go 4 to 1. To build some suspense.
Browns.
4.
I do think.
Okay.
Ravens.
Whoa, really?
Well, I don't know. You're gonna have me
that's not outlandish because they lose Patrick Queen, they lose Geno Stone in that secondary, and Mike McDonald was their fantastic defensive coordinator. He's now the head coach in Seattle. So the defense is definitely going to take a step back.
And then I would go the Steelers and the Bengals. I think the Bengals won the division.
I do too, but
I don't know. I'm putting a lot of faith in the Steelers there.
A little bit, but They always play well. I mean, it could come down to two games.
What if Russ pans out? What if he throws for 26 touchdowns like he did last year?
Russell Wilson could pan out.
Yeah.
Lamar Jackson historically doesn't play well against the Steelers.
Yeah.
Who's to say that? I mean, the Steelers,
all those games packed into late in the season for the Steelers, at least. And you play some divisional games at home late in the season. I don't know. It might be a little crazy to say it, put the Ravens at 3, but I think that's more of a product of where they fall falling behind Cincinnati and Pittsburgh than saying, oh, they're a third place team.
I go Browns 4, Steelers 3, Ravens 2, Bengals 1. I'm with you. I think Cincinnati wins the division. If obviously Joe Burrow stays healthy, they've got a better, I think, offense of attack than Baltimore does, just the way that they go about it. And for all the reasons I mentioned defensively, with Mike McDonald gone in Baltimore, Patrick Queen on the good side.
Yep.
And I feel like I could say on the good side, because whether or not you're a Browns fan, a Bengals fan, or a Steelers fan out there watching this, he's not on the Ravens anymore.
Yeah, you probably don't like the Ravens.
No, you probably don't like the. That's one thing that anytime I see anybody from the Valley out in public, we don't like the Ravens.
Yeah, no Ravens. Right.
Well, Dylan, thanks for taking some time with me this evening. Again, Sports Friday on the go, live in this digital content center each Friday from 7 to about 9:30. And check out Dylan, Wendy's halftime show of all of our Bordas and Bordas live games.
We'll be there. Can't wait for this weekend.
See ya.